Hello there, and welcome back to the Sky Guys podcast. We are through another season of Andor. The show is concluded. Now we're going to take a look back on the show that was here this week on our continue our Andor coverage. I'm your host, Mike Phillips. With me, as always, the man whose voice you hear in narration every single week, Pete Considori is here. Pete, how are you?
Doing well. Decided to dress up like Darth Vader's lightsaber. So if I'm a little red, sorry if it's blinding you from the YouTube version. But yeah, doing great. Excited to talk about how this season went and the conclusion of Andor as a series.
Absolutely, great to have you here. Also here with us today, the I'm going to say that he has friends everywhere. Nick Freda is here. Nick, how are you?
I'm doing great. How do I sound? I'm trying something new with the sound.
You sound fine.
Any different at all?
Nope, you sound good to me.
Great.
Yeah. And back with us here, great friend of the podcast. He talked to him back on Star Wars Podcast Day, and I think he might tell us that we have no idea where he is. Memeobi is back with us. Memeobi, how are you?
I am back. I'm very excited to be here. I love talking about Star Wars. I have nothing else to do, so I might as well talk about Star Wars with you guys. Actually, tonight, the reason I have to cut out early is because I'm going to a Star Wars trivia night, and that does take priority over recording a podcast. So,
Hey, well, all respect. So, like, I'm sure you clean up on Star Wars trivia nights.
well, hard to say. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
Absolutely. So great to have you back with us here. Pete wants subscribers in the sky, guys. They can do so Apple Podcasts, Google Play, TuneIn, Spotify, Amazon, all usual suspects. Simply search for the Sky Guys for your podcast platforms, file episodes there. And we are now into the stretch run here. Just on the stuff for people, this is the last you hear from us for a long time. So you want to subscribe if you want to get all this fun Star Wars content.
Absolutely. Subscribe. We say it every week. Make sure you subscribe to the new YouTube channel. YouTube stuff is going to be exclusively on the at Sky Guys Podcast YouTube now. So make sure you're subscribed.
Yep. Nick, if you want to follow us on social media, I can do that.
At Sky Guys Podcast all over and at Sky Guys Pod if you want to email the pod, which I'll be honest with you, I have not checked that email in a long time. Maybe we're flooded. Maybe we have zero. I don't know.
I keep tabs on it. We have not had a written an email yet, but we have had a lot of comments on the TikTok, which is we're going for our social media comment of the week here. This is from OSHA underscore garden underscore of underscore safety. And he's talked about our K2SO takes here. And he says, using hurt as a human shield is actually terrifying, but also funny that a droid using a human shield. Also, Tudak mocap K2. That's why he's so much sass is walk on the bridge. Crying, laughing emoji, crying emoji. And we were talking about K2SO last week, finally getting to kick some ass.
I think I'm really glad we got to see him a little bit. I obviously wish we could see some more. It's one of my bigger takeaways from this season as a whole. But no, yeah, I mean, I loved K2SO. Everyone loves K2SO. There's no complaints that I don't think I haven't seen any complaints about K2SO. And if they do, I'll block them.
Yeah, I feel like K2SO has universal approval rating in every product he's in.
Yeah. And he will be a Lego set coming soon. So he's everywhere.
Yeah, Pete, I know, like, that's something that's on the wish list right now.
No, it's on the radar for sure. I have nowhere to put it, but it's on the radar.
Yeah, he's going to make a spot for K2SO. All right. And Nick, you have some Star Wars news to catch up this week. A lot of it, like, in the fallout of Andor here.
Yes, we do. So number one, Tony Gilroy was asked why Vader and Tarkin were not in Andor, and his response was, if I needed them, I would have brought them. Which I agree with him. Didn't need them.
All the power to him. I think Memeobi, I think one thing we complain about with Star Wars too much is that it feels like there's times it's a little too fan servicey. A lot of credit to Gilroy for actually being able to do an entire show about the formation of the rebellion, kind of the Empire, and be able to say, I don't need Tarkin or Palpatine or Vader. I can tell the story without them.
100%. I think it kind of just goes to show that like Palpatine was this kind of unreachable character, right? Like from the lower standpoint of like the regular world of Star Wars. He's just kind of out there doing his own thing, has nothing to do with actually running an empire, or just his whole fear thing with the Senate and everything. So I think going into it, I assumed there was going to be a Palpatine, but I'm really glad there was, and I think it worked much better that way.
Absolutely. Nick, what's next?
You're gonna have to help me with this name here.
Oh, this name, Elizabeth Dulau.
Well, that's not as hard as I thought. All right. Elizabeth Dulau did an interview with Entertainment Weekly. She said she's open to continuing. That's the actress, by the way, who played Clea, but interested in continuing her storyline in the future. I, for one, I've made this clear. I don't want that. Not that I don't love Clea, I love the character. I just want it left alone. But if they do that, I'm tuning in 100%.
Yeah, P, I'm in the mindset with the Clay 80s characters here. It's like you need to have the right story to bring them in. I don't want this to be a Jingle Keys thing where like we're watching like the Mandoverse movies, like, oh look, it's Claire from Andor is here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast. I think we're trying to get away, or we would like to try to get away from this time frame in Star Wars. It's very oversaturated. That being said, Andor was a perfect addition to the timeline, but I feel like that's an outlier considering most of Disney Plus's products have not been up to snuff.
Yep.
Next, Andor, the show we're talking about here, is the first show ever to have 5 episodes in a row, 5 in a row, with a 9.5 or higher rating on IMDb,
Impressive.
which I'm assuming is the last five,
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
episodes 8 to 12.
right? Yeah, which makes sense. I mean, they were all spectacular. And I always say, everyone sleeps on seven. Seven was a great episode.
Yeah, I think we slept on 7. We'll get more into that later.
No one's fault, but
Yep.
you know. Next, Tony Gilroy said in another interview that he intentionally chose not to solve the mystery of what happened to Cassian's sister, saying that she's more valuable to me for Cassian to have an absence. As he said in the end, maybe I should stop saving people. His need to return and save people and be a savior, um, and the compulsion to do that comes from his whole in life, and I didn't want to fill that void in his life.
Mimo, what do you think about that storytelling choice? Not to, because that was the thing that starts the whole show, where Cass is looking for his sister. We never solved it. I think I'm satisfied with that idea from Gilroy.
No, I'm also satisfied with that, but I do think maybe it should have been a little bit more close-ended. Like for Cassian, it was great, but for the viewing audience, people like, hey, wait, what happened to her? Like going back and watching season one, I think maybe if we're just like, hey, yeah, no, everyone died on that planet, like then okay, like we get some closure. Like maybe Cassian doesn't even need to hear that. Maybe like his mom says it, or like Marva says it or something in like season one, is where I feel like they should have closed it up. But like I don't mind personally. I think it was good for his character overall.
Yeah, Pete, I was a little worried when we first saw young Clay in the flashback. I'm like, oh, are they gonna make her Cassian's sister and do like a Luke Leia thing? But I'm glad it was not the direction they went.
Same here. I didn't think that. I gotta be honest, it wasn't an angle I was thinking about. But if they did go that angle, I feel like it'd be a little bit more of a, I don't know, cheap way to go about it, in my opinion. But like Memeobi was saying, just a little bit of something, just to give us a little bit of backstory what happened to the sister. Like he said, Cassian doesn't need to know, so I'm on board with that too.
All right, what else? What's next, Nick?
Denise Go plays Dedra on Andor. She said she's done playing the character and Dedra's story is over. Makes sense. I'm happy to hear it. We don't need, again, selfishly, I would like this stuff, but we don't need a backstory, a future story, a middle story on every single character. Some characters are better just left like this was her story. It's done.
Yeah, it's fine. You want to use her comic book? Go ahead, but I don't need to see Denise. Denise goes not to come back.
Right. And lastly, Rebel Moon, which we had so much fun covering on this podcast together. We covered, I think there were 2 movies. They blend together.
Yep.
It's dead. No more. It was originally pitched as a Star Wars film, which is why we're bringing it up, but um, it's dead, and rightfully so after the, what is it, 4 hours we had to sit through?
More than that, I think it was like close to like 4.5.
Well, there you go. 4.5 hours of sitting through it.
Nobody else got to
We
it.
don't have to do anymore.
Mo, did you ever check this out? This Rebel Moon?
I never actually got to check it out. I heard about it and I was interested, but it just missed my radar of things I actually went and saw or did.
Yeah, unless you're a big fan of a 15-minute montage of harvesting grain, I think you're okay.
Well, I see. I could see the appeal.
That it, Nick?
Yeah, that's all.
All right, so let's get into what we're doing here today. So, a little talk here. We did the all the big storylines and stuff last week on the pod with Andor. Do a little reflection on the season as a whole and some big stuff overall. So, me, Moby, since we have not heard from you yet on the Andor stuff, like what'd you think about what we got in season 2?
Okay, so I enjoyed it. I rate it. It's super good, right? What a great describer. Super good. I do think it was held back by a lot of different factors. things I think they could have done better for sure. But overall, like ending, I definitely have recency bias, right? Like the last three were amazing. Like we said, like the last whatever five were just insanely good Star Wars, and it's good, like just good writing, good story overall. So I definitely have recency bias where like the taste in my mouth was great by the end. Do I think they could have changed things to make it better and more widely accepted in the Star Wars community? I do. But overall, I really enjoyed it as like a whole. But I do think they could have fixed a few things.
Pete, what do you think about what we got as a whole of season two?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was wonderful. I think pacing was a little bit of an issue. I think it did seem a little disjointed between each year. It was almost like I was watching a new season every time I hit that new arc. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I think that there were some arcs that were stronger than others, and we'll talk about it probably a little bit more in depth. But I think that the pacing was the main issue for me, and I feel like they could have drawn out some arcs a little bit more and not worried about having each year in between Andor season one and Rogue One. But overall, I mean, I think it was fantastic.
Yeah, Nick, I think my personal opinion is like I sort of agree. I think the beginning of the season, especially, you could tell like it was a little tough for those first couple arcs to sort of fill the three episodes. And then like once we got to the back end, there was so much like I want more. And then like we just limited by the amount of time we had. So I think the pacing was probably my one critique, but overall, very top-notch stuff.
My opinion is very, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but I hate this show because of how much I like it. This show has ruined television for me. I can't watch another show. You can call me a simp, whatever you want. To me, this is the best show I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And anytime, the best piece of media I've ever seen, I've tried watching television in the last week. I can't do it. I just think about Andor. To me, this is ruined TV.
It's ruined TV. That's a big statement, Memeobi.
It's too good for me.
That is a big statement, just because I do think they could have done a lot better in some instances. I don't know if we want to get into that yet or
If you
what.
want, if you want to go for it, go ahead.
Okay, so here's my things that I think they could have done better. I do feel like they kind of wrote themselves into a box, meaning what Pete was saying earlier, like with the year gaps between each one. I love the year gaps. I think it's great. You can see how the rebellion was built. But since they made each like little 3 episode arc kind of within like a couple days of each other, it
Yeah.
kind of like the slices were almost too small.
Yeah.
For like I feel like they could have made it like each set of 3 was like a month long or like 2 months, so we could see a little bit more of like the actual rebellion being built, because we have all these generals and stuff we have from Rogue One. We don't see how Mon Mothma or Luthen anything like showed us that, or like Luthen's been a thorn in our side, they say in the last episode. But it's like, show us a little bit more of that instead of like, what is it, like in the first set of 3 they just get like, they talk about like a battle, like a mission they did, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, instead of just hinting to the mission, just show it. Like just show us the mission, a little more skirmishes instead of writing themselves into like a 1 day window. Do like a month of that year to get a little more action. Like I know, like I love it that it was slow paced, right? But I think the general Star Wars fan does like some action, and there was a little action in each set of 3, but I feel like they could have given us a little bit more action, and then maybe make K2SO one set of episodes earlier, because I do love K2SO and a little more of him. But that's just like my general overview of why I think they could do better.
Yeah, and Pete, my think on this here is something we can talk about a little bit now, and then we're gonna bring it up later. Is this idea that originally this was a pitch, a 5 season show, and like some of the stuff that me always talk about was gonna happen off screen. Oh, this mission we did, and like yeah, this thing happened like 2 months ago. I think like if we had the full 5 seasons of Andor, we might have gotten these things. But like since we didn't, I feel like they kind of had to choose like what's our best stuff in each original season plan. This is what they went with.
Yeah, I mean, I think 5 seasons may have been a little too much. I think if they did 3 or 4, we would have been in a more comfortable situation. I will say though, I mean, just to nitpick here, think about back to story arc one, episodes 1 through 3 of this show.
Yeah.
Does it really matter? Right? Like I get it, it shows some dynamics with Andor, Cassian and stuff, but if you really think about it, stealing that TIE fighter means nothing for the rest of the season. We don't see any reason to have that TIE fighter. The two, like the gang that splits up and stuff, you don't really see much of that anymore. So I feel like that was kind of not wasted. in the moment when we're watching it, wow, this is great. I love where it's going. But really, when we get to, let's just call it what it is, when we get to the Gorman Massacre, everything before that just seems like, oh yeah, the show's about the Gorman Massacre, moving on. Like you don't really think about the stuff before. You don't care about the wedding. You don't care about the TIE fighter. So I think as much as it was fantastic to watch, and it's still a great season, it it seems like we wasted half of the season if you think about it. It finishes strong, so I feel like, like Memeobi was saying, recency bias. Like, oh, this show was great. It finished amazing. Imagine if it didn't. The first half of the season's a little bit weaker than the second.
Yeah, it is here. And Nick, you want to weigh in on any of those thoughts that what we just had about like the pacing and like not like sort of locking ourselves into like, oh, we're gonna do this year, but we have like 3 days we're gonna do in the year, as opposed to like sort of doing an episode here, then jumping forward a few months, show something else. Like,
I agree. To me, it's what makes it so unbelievable, which is what I love about it so much, is we have a Star Wars show that's probably going to get nominated for Emmys because of writing. And I like taking not taking that for granted and like being excited about it and like being a little kid about it. Like as a kid, I always imagined like, oh, Star Wars is just movies. What if they had a show? What would it be like? And I would think like, oh, it'd be this great show. I imagine on ABC or whatever. And I guess technically this is on ABC a little bit, but like I always pictured that, and I feel like I'm getting what I pictured as a kid. I'm
yeah,
not getting no disrespect to any of the other shows, but like I'm not getting Boba Fett. You know what I mean?
yeah, you're not getting Darth Vader.
I meant like I'm not getting the Boba Fett show.
Yeah, no, you're not.
That's what I meant. Like I'm not getting like something which is like, oh, this is I'm saying this is like a weekly thing that I can tune into that I know the writing is fantastic. Like in my mind, the only show with better writing that I've ever seen in my life is Sopranos.
Yeah, high praise.
Yeah.
All right. So I think another thing I want to think about here with season two is obviously you got these storylines here. We got, mentioned here, Pete brought up the Goran Master, sort of the driving force of like the whole season sets up the third arc, and then like we get the fallout, and then we kind of skip right to the right for Rogue One in it here. I think the Goran stuff's fantastic. I think obviously like for BBY, like the Cassian storyline kind of like feels a little superfluous aside from the whole action sequence in it. And I think like Mon Mothma to kind of have to wait around her a little bit till she gets to do the speech. But I think like it fits together well as a whole. But like I can see the argument, Nick, where it's like, okay, like this, like do we need a TIE fighter thing being our one Cassian storyline and for BBY? Could we have done better? Could we have done worse? Like I don't know.
I mean, maybe we could have done better, but I think, and Pete's 100% right. Like, you look at the stuff that happened in episode one, two, three, even a little bit of four or whatever. No, not so much four, because that's when you really get into Gorman, but that first arc, and then you look at the end of the show. Did it matter? No, it didn't. But the idea that I said back in when we covered the first arc, which I still believe is what makes that arc so good and like that whole TIE fighter thing so good, is it really scales it down and brings it down to earth for a second. Because like we're used to watching, let's just say, A New Hope. There's TIE fighters everywhere. There's hundreds of them, and they're doing the trench run on the Death Star. We just think of it as like, hey, you get in, you hit the gas, and you drive. It's like a car. And then you realize when we see this, it's like they don't even know how to turn it on.
Yeah.
It grounds it for a little bit, and it shows you that this is like this was real, and you got in an airplane, for example. You like I'm sure when you were a kid, you went in the cockpit once, and you were a kid, and the pilot shows you the little buttons and stuff. There's 10,000 buttons in there, and that's what it's like in Star Wars too. It brings it down to a real life level, and that's what I appreciate. Did it matter? Probably not, but does it? Is it just great writing and really bring Star Wars into like a realistic type of way? Yeah, and that's what I love about it.
Absolutely. Here, let's go to the character front as well, Pete, because like obviously, like we knew going in, like okay, we know that like Cassian, Saw, like Mon Mothma, Bale, when he eventually showed up, like these guys are all going to be in Rogue One, and their story's going to wind up there. Like I kind of think they did in terms of like the other characters, like the ones we chose to kill off, the ones left alive off screen. How do you think they handled like what they did here with these characters?
I mean, I think it's fine. I don't, you know, I don't, I don't think we needed all the characters all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like ones we killed off, ones we didn't. I'm not really thinking about, oh, I mean, we're talking about B2 Emo. As much as we talked about, we're never going to hear about him again. Like it doesn't really matter. The show ended the way I think it needs to.
Yeah. I think like main character wise, I think they did a pretty solid job. We like placing like these characters. Like were the ones that you felt like were gonna die, like Luthen and Karn to a degree. And then seeing
Yeah.
like Bix go through her arc with the trauma and Dedra end up in prison. Like I think they did a good job placing everybody.
Uh, I agree. I do. Okay. I kind of want to. I'm gonna jump back real quick.
Sure.
So, to Nick's point about the Tie Fighter and the because my main complaint. I'm just taking over here. My main complaint is the first 3 episodes because I know personally 7 people who stopped watching because of the first 3 episodes, and they love everything Star Wars. So, but the reason is the TIE fighter is great. I love the small scale and the whole like airplane analogy. Great. But that doesn't need to be 3 episodes, right? Like the most important stuff from those 3 is, yeah, you show how it's small scale. There's like a little skirmish. The rebels are kind of like disjointed, and you hear about Krennic starting like the stuff with like the Gormans and like trying to like sway the Empire into thinking they're bad. But it's like I feel like we could have gotten, I don't know, that's my trouble is like they could have put more in that first 3. But back to the characters. I love them all except for the one guy. I can never remember his name. It's like Andor's sidekick guy that like goes and helps out. What's his name?
Melshi.
Elsie.
Yeah, I don't care about him. But I and then like there's like 2 love stories with
Will.
because yeah, I don't care about him either. I feel no offense, because like we have Cassian, we have Luthen. I love Luthen. Like we have these really strong characters that it feels like we could just focus on them more. But I do love the end placement. I thought Bix was going to die 100%. I was really surprised she didn't die. I think it ended well. But I don't know. That's just kind of my disjointed thoughts.
I kind of agree. Melshi, I only care because he's in Rogue One. Like other than that, I
Yeah, yeah,
wouldn't care.
yeah.
But Wilmon, I don't care about at all.
Yeah.
Don't care.
Every time he was on the screen, I didn't care. I was like, is he gonna die? Is he not gonna die? I really don't care. Like I thought, I completely agree. I thought Bix was gonna die, and I was like, oh no, Bix, like don't die, Bix. Like, and I was happy when she didn't. Like same with Luthen. I mean, not that he didn't, but I was rooting for him not to die in a way. All these
Mhm.
characters I'm rooting for. With Wilmon, I was like, if he dies, I really don't care at all.
Yeah, I want to get your take, Memeobi, on Clea, who obviously like season 1, like she's there, she's like sort of like Luthen's
Mhm.
sidekick. You're like you don't think much of her, and then like all of a sudden, like I said to the guys last week on the pod, like in that arc, in the second arc of the season, when she's trying to steal the listening device back from Davos like exhibition here, she really
Yeah.
just pings on my radar. And then the amount of work that the actress Lizzie Doolittle does to raise this character, and the point that Tony Gilroy says, like she was the only one to give a backstory to other than Cassie because I wanted to be the one to tell it. Like that tells you a lot about like how much work he's put into that one character specifically.
No, I love Clay. I think she completely just I think she killed it. Right. She like straight out of acting school. It's the first thing she did. And like just amazing actress. And yeah, I mean, out of nowhere, right? Like you're saying, like season 1 didn't see much of her, and then this like last set, like oh, like these flashbacks are so interesting. Like I'm so invested in this backstory of Luthen and the backstory of her, and like I wouldn't be opposed to her coming back to something. Yes, I don't want it to be like campy and like oh here she is in Mandalorian. I don't know what that would look like. I don't know if people would want that like has standalone Clea, but as an actress, as a character, it was just so solidly written and acted by her. Like I don't know. I couldn't picture anyone else, but obviously I can never picture anyone else for anything. So no, I amazing actress.
If you told me, like, watch the show, one of these actor or actresses just came out of drama school, which one is it?
Yeah.
She'd probably be like my 15th guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not saying anyone did a poor job. It's not like someone I would
Right.
guess first, but like, I don't,
She
there's
fit right
plenty
in.
of people I would guess have her.
Yeah, 'cause she fit right in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did love that year. And P, I did see a theory flowing around online, a fan idea about like what to do with these characters if you want to do a sort of a spiritual successor to Andor. And there's a throwaway line in Return of the Jedi that Mon says, "Oh, like these Bothan spies like died to get us the Death Star 2 plan." Sort of the idea of like have like Clea, maybe Vel, some people like we're left alive doing background like rebellion stuff that's going on in between the original trilogy movies. Like, I'm not saying it's like a go-to idea, but like well written, maybe. I'm not like I can do without it, but if somebody wanted to do it successfully, I'd be intrigued.
No, I say run back the holiday special. Throw them in a holiday special, and and I think that that'll work. And you can do the Death Star plans on that. Yeah, I mean, we can theorize and speculate on how we can bring these characters back. Like I've said before, probably best to just leave this as is, leave the characters as is. Um, sometimes letting something breathe and letting something just be is the best thing for content. Once you start oversaturating, that's when you start to delegitimize or make it less special because there's just so much more of it. So I say let it breathe. It's a cool theory, but I mean, we don't, like you said, we don't need it.
We do not need it here. And another thing on the character front here, like I'm
Mike, before you, sorry to cut you off, before you carry on, I completely agree. Leave it alone. Quick show of hands. Who thinks they're actually going to leave it alone? For the record, those on audio, no one raised their hand.
like, that terrifies the hell out of me as well because we
Rogue
know that
2,
like
Many Bothans is definitely coming out.
yeah, it's like Rogue like Death Star 2 Boogaloo.
Yeah. I don't think they're definitely going to do that, although they shouldn't.
Yeah. Like that's what terrifies me about this as well, Nemo, is that like this is so good and like it's so good because not only like did like they actually let Tony Gilroy cook and do his thing, but like they sort of like did not meddle and interfere as much. Like, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. And Gilroy's like, it's done. I don't have another story. Where but they saw how well this did. Like they're naturally gonna try and find something to repeat it without the right person like pulling the strings.
Well, I mean, they could always have him come back, Tony Gilroy come back for a because I mean, Luke and them are all running off doing training and stuff. They're not really part of the rebellion a ton after like Hoth, right? And then for Death Star 2, there is a story there. Will I watch it? Yes. Will I like it? Probably. Will I be mad about it? No. For me, that's the thing I always think about. For me, I want all Star Wars. Give me anything. Darth Maul could have showed up in the show. I wouldn't have even been mad. But like for for like the audience, for like the general like consumer of Star Wars, I don't want it to be oversaturated, like Pete was saying. Like I don't want the oversaturation so that people don't lose interest and then Disney stops making it.
Yeah.
I want oversaturation. I want to show all the time. But I know for the greater good of the world, we don't need that. And it would be bad for the overall franchise.
Yeah, like it's great for the content creators, not as much for the actual audience.
Correct.
Yeah, I will also throw in here, Nick, on that front in terms of the did you ever hear the rumor like it went around about how Tony Gilroy got back involved with this show?
No. What do you mean? And on also, when you explain, what do you mean by back?
Like I think
You
they
mean from Rogue One, or
no, I mean not from Rogue One. I mean with actually being the one to show run Andor. I don't
please
know. I
tell
don't
me
know.
all?
I do not know the veracity of this. I've got to fact check the numbers on this, but allegedly, like Andor was in the batch of stuff that they remember they did that infamous announcement in like 2020 where they had the wall with all the series and some got made and some didn't. There was, I think, buzz that like I've seen this on the internet to verify the factualness of this, but like apparently like Kathleen Kennedy called Tony Gilroy and said, "Oh, we're doing this show about Andor." He's like, "What's it about?" He's like, "Oh, it's gonna be adventures of Cassian and K2SO." And he's like, no, that's a bad idea. It's like you want to do it, you got to do this like whole grounded story with the foundation of the rebellion and how he becomes a hero. And then she's like, "Oh, that sounds better. I'm gonna hire you." And then like that's how it happened, allegedly.
Um, that's cool.
Yeah,
I'd rather that. I want to see if anyone else caught what I said last week. Mainly Memeobi because he wasn't here for it. But I kind of just figured when we watched Rogue One in theaters that when we eventually went back and saw Cassian and K2SO meet, that they were going to really be buddy buddy. And I feel like he's kind of mean to K2SO
he's like,
in Rogue One and in the show. Only when they're messing with him, when they're drinking, playing poker, whatever they're playing, is he seem to be like friendly with him. He's kind of like not really that. It almost seems like the love is one-sided.
He's definitely not that friendly of a guy in general, if you think
True.
about it. I haven't so since the finale of Andor season 2, I haven't gone back and watched Rogue One again. That's like it's next week, I think. So I haven't re-experienced it after this, and I'm excited to. But yeah, no, I think he definitely is. He's not on the side of like Mando, where Mando like hates droids, right? Like he's lived around droids his whole life, but he definitely doesn't treat them as equal. But he doesn't really treat anybody as equal. If you think about it, he kind of just wants to get the job done. he kind of like that's why they like him in the rebellion, right? Like, that's why they like Cassian, because he just gets things done, and he's a droid. So I think in Cassian's mind, maybe he just doesn't care as much about what he thinks in a way, because he knows he's going to be loyal to him because he's like his friend, I guess, or buddy.
Yeah, I feel like that makes sense. And in terms of the character point, I do want to sort of bring us ideas. Like we talked about earlier, that some of these characters he did not include here. P, anybody like that we did not get in this show, you felt like we could have seen it would have like added to the experience in some form.
I mean, it would have been fan servicey, but I feel like if we could have gotten maybe some of the Ghost crew in live action on Yavin, I don't know if that's canonically correct. Please don't go come after me in the comments, but I don't know. I just felt like if it would work to have that, I feel like that's the only like answer that would be for me cool. Don't know what your thoughts on it are. Again, don't know if it's canonically accurate, but I don't know. Those are the only like characters I would say like, oh, that'd be cool to see. Everyone else you didn't really need. I think everyone kind of drove the point home of the rebellion.
Well, I know canonically, I know that we know Chopper is on like Yavin during Rogue One, so like
All
he's
right, so
there.
there you go, Chopper.
And
Yeah,
Hera too.
Hera's there because they say her name in the background.
All
But
right, so see, I know a couple things. May
yeah,
not be perfect,
I,
but
I
I got
think
a couple of them.
well, I would have loved to have seen Jimmy Smits. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But I know the outrage is crazy, but no, in reality, the two characters that I think they could have thrown in there, it would have been very fan servicey, but it would have made sense. Is the droids, 3PO and R2. They're on Yavin in Rogue One, so they could easily have thrown them in a scene, but I'm glad they didn't. You don't need the jingle keys that they've been so famous for in all these shows, these jingle keys that, hey, look at this, you know what this is? Yeah, buy Disney Plus because we'll show you characters you like. Like, no, this is they go out of their way to like not do that in this show. They put in who they have to.
yeah.
Like we explained like last week, I don't know their names, but the Rebel Council or this is
High,
the
high,
whatever that was, sorry, the what, the high what,
high command.
the high. I meant their specific names. I don't know their specific names, but
Basically, whoever's at the table in Rogue One had to be in the show.
exactly they needed to throw. And then there's also a guy. I don't know his name either, but he's like he sits on a computer
Yeah.
and he runs out and he screaming Senator in Rogue One, but I don't know his name either. But he's also in Andor. I don't. He's like one of the guys who sits at the computer and looks at the beeps
Yeah.
that they make fun of in Spaceballs.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're like drawing stuff. I don't know what they're doing, but he's one of those guys who was in Rogue One was also in Andor, and I feel like they had to put these guys in, like K2SO. I almost feel like they didn't want to put him in; they had to.
You
Now
check-
I'm glad they did. Love K2SO,
I
but
know
like
Gilroy made,
everyone who's in there had to be there.
Gilroy made a big thing about K2SO in terms of like why he waited so long because he's like he feels like K2SO as a character is a limiting device in terms of like if he's such overpowered droid, it's
Cheat
like
code.
the cheat code. So like
Yeah,
we have to come up with excuses not to use K2SO. So the longer I can wait to bring him in, like the better it is for the story. I don't have to get to him, but like if he's there at 4 BBY instead of like 2 BBY, it's a lot harder for me to tell the story because I can just say, why didn't they use K2SO to solve this problem?
it's true.
Yeah. And I did see, did any of you guys see the interview that Gilroy did with Entertainment Weekly about why Jyn Erso didn't show up?
You sent something to us, and yeah, go ahead though.
Yeah, so I have the article pulled up here. Tony Gilroy did an interview with Dalton Ross at Entertainment Weekly about the appearances of why Jyn Erso didn't show up. And I know Pete had said, oh, like in the timeline she just saw as Parsons and she could have been there and maybe just missed her. But Gilroy did say here, like he changed his mind on a lot of these cameos, including Jin. He said in the end, I realized if people didn't absolutely have to be there, they shouldn't. It would have been lame to bring back Jin as a cameo. That would have been really disrespectful in a way. I'd rather honor Rogue and keep it straight. So I believe Nick, I think you said it on like one of our pods, like Gilroy likes to travel light, and Jin would have been like just an ultimate jingle key. So she was the main character in Rogue One.
Yeah, well, another thing is, I wonder. You assume everyone who watched this show saw Rogue One, right?
You would think.
Maybe not everyone. I'm sure it's not 100%, but a vast majority.
I'd say probably like
She's
70.
not a very recognizable character
No.
outside of course, the Star Wars fandom.
Yeah.
But like, I say this all the time. My dad doesn't know who that is.
Yeah.
So like, my dad would know who Vader is, of course.
Yeah.
So like, is it as jingle keys as you think? Is my point.
I think it's more like we saw the story. There was no real slot he had in it for Jyn Erso to be there at that. Just being, oh look, Jyn Erso's here.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it would have been forced to put her in, right? I think the only cameo that I could have seen is like I don't think it would went over well. Is like a Leia, like a young Leia in the not the last set, but the set before, like as a junior senator when like Mon Mothma was speaking, because like Mon Mothma started as a junior senator, I believe, when she was like 16, and so did like Leia, and then like since her like Leia's dad's there, um, like could have had that, but like again, would it have taken away from the overall story? Like kind of like oh, would I be rather be watching that story? That's the same thing. Like if Darth Vader showed up, it's like, oh, I'd rather be watching to see what he's doing. Same with the Emperor. It's like that's a good reason not to bring these characters in because it almost makes people more interested in the what if of like what the other characters they love are doing. Same with like the rebels, like the Ghost Crew, right? Like they're doing their own thing. They're gonna go bring Mon Mothma in at the end and stuff. But like, do I need to see all of that since we already have it in Rebels? And then again, it's like if you haven't seen Rebels, then it's like who are these people? What are these random aliens and stuff I don't know? So that and that's why I feel like Ahsoka is weaker because like you do need a cartoon to do it. But I don't know. That's my thought.
I did. It's a great point too, especially Pete. The line that like Tony Gilroy made a big point, like when Cassian does the whole thing with Mon Mothma's speech, and Draven says, "Well, watch her speech. She's got to give it in front over Dan to." He's like, "Nah, I already saw it." So like, it's a fair way. It's like say, like the audience knows that Rebels happen. You want to see the Rebel speech and go watch it, but like Cassian saw her speaking the Senate. He doesn't need to watch it again.
I mean, I just want to make one point. Why have Melshi? Right? Does he have to be there? Does he have to be in the show?
No.
No,
He's a Rogue One cameo, right? So I mean, let's be real. If you're gonna make a cameo, why pick Melshi over Jin or something like that? So I mean, that's the only thing that kind of boggles my mind. That Tony Gilroy was so, and I look, I respect everything he did with the show. I can't do it, but if you're gonna bring cameo, why is Melshi there?
I guess if you go back and watch Rogue One, which I did immediately after the finale, he is like the main guy of all the guys that like when Cassian's like, I believe you to Jin, and then there's like a group behind him. Melshi's in the middle. Melshi's kind of like telling them what to do when they're on Scarif. So like if you had to pick a guy outside of our main crew, which is
Sure.
like the
yeah,
two guys from Jeddah and Bodhi and whatnot, he is like the I guess you call him the sixth man. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Sure.
Plus, I mean, like he's the one who gets Jin off the ship in the beginning of Rogue One, also. So,
Yeah. Which I kind of forgot about that it's him and K2SO who go, not Cassian and K2SO.
yeah, because Cassie's off finding Tivik at that point.
Right,
Right.
but I mean the only argument I make is that what does he add to this show? Like obviously he's an important character in Rogue One. I'm not discrediting that, but was he needed here?
I guess he,
That's all the only point I'm trying to make.
I
I
guess
think because he's an important character in Rogue One that wasn't found in Rogue One, like Jin, who was already pre-established, they wanted to show where he was.
they wanted to build a relationship with Cassian, I think.
Okay. That's fair.
Because also, I don't think the work of him being the one running with Cassian to go rescue Clay in the finale works. You don't have them bonding in the prison.
It could have been a
I
Whaleman.
forgot he's on the prison too.
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember like they had, I remember the whole thing with him was last season. I think they had a whole conversation and like Gilroy's in the writer's room. He's like, what if Melchi's in the prison? Like, oh, okay, we'll do that. All right. In the interest of time here, I want to try and move along to a couple other quick hit things here. So, the movie model we got this year with all the arcs releasing as 3 episode batches, like on like over a month, as opposed to the weekly. Did that work for you, Memeobi? Do you think it would have been better if we had the 12 weeks?
I am so glad they didn't do it weekly because I think they would have lost so many more people. Because if you don't watch them as a set of three, it's not nearly as fun because it's like, oh, you watch one a night. I know a lot of people that just only had time to watch one a night, and they were like, it's kind of slow, it's hard to get through. I'm like, man, because it does feel like it's a need to. It almost like they should have released 4 episodes, like an hour and 45-minute episodes, and that way people are like, oh, it's one episode. Because I think without that, especially the first two arcs, like are kind of slow, which like, and I think they would have lost way more viewership if they released episode to episode over 12 weeks, right? Like they're already struggling with like the 4 week release, but like I mean, for me too, like I love to be able to watch all of it at once and get like kind of like a binge feel, but not actually binging a whole season where like I can be up to date and no one's really ahead of me. But it's like, I don't know. I definitely I like the style. I don't think it'll work for other shows. Like don't do it any other shows, I don't think, unless it's like it feels like it needs to be like a one-off thing because it worked for this type of, yearly kind of release thing.
Yeah, Nick, I think that you makes a great point, especially with that first arc. If we did this over 3 weeks, like imagine we'd be waiting 6 weeks till we get to like the Gorman stuff, and like you would lose a lot of momentum that way. I think even if you did the fast track and did what we did for the season one, where we had the first arc drop all at once and then we did weekly, like I think that first arc is not strong enough to like sort of like build momentum, like a people keep going.
I completely agree with Memeobi, everything you said. I didn't think I was gonna love it going in because I generally like weekly releases, but it's just how it's meant to be watched that way. It needs to be watched that way. The only thing I will say is, as a content creator in our podcast, it was brutal.
The challenge.
There's a lot more homework, if you will, before each week. It was basically a movie each week to watch before we can record. But it made sense that way, and it made the show, I think, a lot more enjoyable that way.
Yeah, it did. And Pierre Tony Gilroy was pounding the table before the suits. He's like, this should be like 4 bats of three. So the story flows together that way instead of like having people chop off in the middle and wait for a week for the next part of the story.
It was a smart decision. I mean, like Nick and Memobi said, I think this works so much better in chunks than it would if you had to week to week. I firmly agree that you would lose people probably after week three if they even got that far.
Okay. Next question, real quick, Nick. Of the 4 years that we didn't get full seasons on, because remember the plan was 5 full seasons, then we cut it down to 2. Like, do you think that like any of these would have been better as full seasons, or would you prefer what we got in the condensed version? I think Memobi, I know, is on the train of like I'd like a little more spaced out.
Yeah, I think that the third arc would have been better as a full season because, as Memobi said at the top of the show, there was a lot of building of the rebellion at that time on Yavin that would have been nice to see. And then you could have ended it the same way with the Mon Mothma speech and all that stuff and the Gorman massacre and whatnot. But maybe one more on Gorman. There's also another story on Yavin of everything building up. And that could have maybe been a whole season. I think the last arc was perfect as a last arc.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with the third arc.
Yeah, Memobi, you feel like any of these other than Arc 3 could have like been like better as like just the full season experience if you would have got like to see a full season of that Gorman massacre arc.
I don't think I don't feel like a full season of the Gorman Massacre would have worked. Like it fit, right? It's a one day, it's like a couple, a 30-minute event. Could they have stretched the whole Gorman Massacre into a whole season? Probably. The one I would rather see is like the fourth arc. Like he was saying, like building, like you get what is it, General Draven? Like how did he come into the fold? Like where did that happen? Get more K2SO, get the horror episode that they talked about for K2SO, where he's like stalking people down, killing everybody. Like that's like the stuff I'm more interested in because maybe it's because it's closer to Rogue One. Like it's a cooler timeline when the rebels are more built up. You can see more skirmishes and then how they're attacking the Empire. Early stuff is cool. Like I love them grocery shopping. I do. I really loved it. But like I don't need more Wheat Planet, and I don't need more of them arguing. Like I'd rather see the last two, definitely. That's why they're better, because it's starting to be cohesive and showing more of like the rebellion.
Yeah, it makes some sense here. So, last thing here, before we get to sort of the trackers and stuff that I want to sort of wrap up on here, like legacy of this show, Pete. I know we're gonna do a more detailed conversation in a couple of weeks, but like the legacy of Andor, in your opinion, is what?
What Star Wars writing should be. Um, I think that this should be a template and it should be a role model, if you will, or a guide to how to write Star Wars. Even with Jedi, even with whatever we're going to do it, I think that the template and the theming worked. And I think if you see the success of this show and don't use this as your baseline, it's foolish. So I think the legacy is not only it being a great show, but it should be quote unquote copied, right? How they did it moving forward for Star Wars, event, Marvel, whatever their properties are. This was written correctly.
Yeah, Memeobi, I think Pete's on something here. I think obviously the writing, I think the bar needs to be higher for the stuff we get here. No one's saying is every Star Wars property needs to be like a prestige TV event like this was, but like if you take away, we can write better. We don't need to throw in jingle keys every chance we get. We don't need to have like this random guy we saw in one comic book be like a focal character
Sure.
for episodes. I think if we do that and have that enhance the quality of other Star Wars we're getting, I think it'll be a big service to the franchise as a whole.
Yeah, I like. Do I think this is I can't even talk. The most well written Star Wars show or movie we've gotten? Yes. Do I think it's the best well written? Like, it's hard to say. Like, it's not the best Star Wars show in my opinion because it's not inherently Star Wars y, right? Like, you have all the original movies with George. They're more Star Wars esque, right? You have lightsabers, you have the whole thing. But do I think Andor season 2 is the most well written overall? Yes, but I don't think it's the best that doesn't mean it's the best Star Wars like show or movie to me. Um, but yeah, I worry about how slow it is. That's like the main complaint I get is slowness, and I worry that the legacy of it is that it's a slow paced show. Because that's most of the comments I have is like, we just can't get through the first like 4 episodes. I'm just like, I'm struggling. I'm like, is it worth it? Like, I get comments all the time like, hey, is it worth it? Should I continue? I'm like, yes, you got to get to it. It's like the most on-screen deaths I've ever seen in Star Wars. Like, you got to get, like, you got to get to the thing. But I'm very happy with it, and the writing stellar. I think with the success of this, hopefully Disney takes this and like, hey, this is what people want, and they can continue with that and make more like in-depth storylines like this.
Nick, last thoughts before we get to all our trackers and whatnot.
I don't know what it's going to be, the legacy, but I hope the legacy is that we can look back and say this is when Star Wars figured it out. When they, not that they've had only bad shows before this, but like this is when they've found the way, they turned the corner and every show was great. That's my hope. We'll see.
We will see here. And well, before you go, we always think we want you to be part of the fun here because whenever we do the show, we always do fun things like we draft characters who could show up. We do track things. So we'll get you off the light. Your takes on some of these things here. So we're gonna start. We prior to season 1, we did a character draft of characters who might show up in the show. We added one in season 2. We struck out completely in season 1, but here's the final results of the character draft.
Yeah, so these are characters that were not announced to be in the show, who we predicted would be in the show prior to season
Yep.
1. The number next to the name is how many episodes they appeared in.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got lucky with Krennic being there like in season 2. I took him in season 1.
Yep.
Like Pete got lucky. He went the Rebels route and Tony did not know Tony Gilroy was traveling that light when we did the draft. But Nick got 4 for Draven to finish in second place.
Yeah, no, I did a similar thing right before the show came out. We definitely knew Bail Organa and Krennic. One that I'm almost surprised at is Galen Erso. Kind of like I thought maybe he'd be in like some other scenes, but no. And then Palpatine. Palpatine was my other pick that I would think would show up. Like I was thinking like a hologram. I was thinking he'd be like a hologram, and there'd be like an announcement for like Empire Day. Is like I was glad he wasn't in it, but that's as far as I thought they'd go with that. Obviously everyone else, it's anyone that's alive at that time, right? Like I listed everyone that could potentially be in it. But in the end, right, like I'm really glad it wasn't. I'm like they said, like jingle keys, the whole bit. Like I don't think we need that as Star Wars consumers and Star Wars fans.
You
Yeah.
can see my faith from when we started this, which was I guess fall of 2022 before season 1.
Yeah.
I actually drafted Ahsoka because I didn't want her to be in the show. But I'm thinking, watch, they're gonna throw Ahsoka in here because they throw her in everything. That's how little my faith was compared to now. I'm like, that's not even like it looks laughable looking back at it.
Yeah, it's like the one sticks out like a sore thumb on this board.
Yeah, because back then we didn't know who to trust.
Yeah, we now trust Gilroy now on this show.
Right.
Another thing we did, Meanwhile, prior is we did a death draft where we picked 2 characters each who we thought would die in the course of the season. We went 5 for 6.
Yep.
The only misses Nick took Bix, and Nick thought Bix was gonna die.
Yep.
I can't believe Pete got a point with like Dr. Gore. I was like, dude, I
True.
don't think he's gonna be in the show. And then he not only was he in it, he actually died.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, I thought all those characters would die. I thought they're gonna do a Rogue One. Like anyone we know that we didn't see in Rogue One, just dead. Like they're gonna all die. And I was hoping they would, but it's okay that they didn't all die. I think the stories ended well enough.
Yeah, and surprisingly, like Nick and I debated several times. The like, oh, like Wilbon's definitely dead at the end of this show. Like, there's no way he survives, and he survives.
Yeah, once he got in deep with Saw and let's just say the drugs.
Yeah.
I thought he was going down.
Yeah, I thought he was dying on Gorman. I thought he was the death we got that arc, but not him. And we'll quickly go through our trackers of stuff we do every single week here. We had on the show, we keep track, meanwhile, how many times Hondo appears in Star Wars content.
Okay.
He's had 19 total appearances. He's not appeared since, like, I think, like
Did you count him in Outlaws?
and not counting Outlaws yet. So I'll add that one next.
20.
Yeah, now it'll be the 20.
I just finished it yesterday, actually, the DLC with Hondo.
Oh, there you
Fun.
go.
Well, it's pretty short, honestly. Definitely not worth whatever they're charging for it, but it was fun.
Yeah, for sure. That's that one here. In terms of the other trackers we do here, we keep track of both animated cameos. There were 12 total between Saw Gerrera and Erskine Samaj. So 12 total. It's basically
Nice.
every episode they appear in.
Yeah, nice.
So 2 unique characters, correct?
Yep. Live action cameos. There's 14 unique characters, made 37.
Wow.
Pretty
Wow.
cool.
We visited 19 planets. That's another fun one over 24 episodes. We had 5 classic lines, which is also fun. We kind of got people Andor killed in the show. I got up to 585. We did some rough math in the building. He blew up.
Oh yeah, I was like, what?
Take out the building he blew up. What was the number?
Probably about like 70.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
Yeah. We tracked name character deaths in season 2. We had 14.
Wow.
Yeah. We had the memes. We kept track of memes. We got 3 in the course of the show, which is Karn face down in the bed. The Mon Mothma like shock face when Cassian kills Cloris.
Yeah.
And then this week we got a lot of Saw Gerrera going, you don't know where I am. That's been all.
I think we got a 4th one. I've been seeing K2SO holding, sorry, his name for escapes me. The ISB guy where he's holding him up like, forget his name though.
Admiral Hurt.
I've been seeing that as a meme too. I think you should update that to 4.
All right, I'll update it to 4. And the last one we didn't get in the show, Memeobi, the chopper kill count, which carried over from Rebels. We have it at 50,021 based on some Reddit.
Yeah. Insane. What a legend.
All right, quickly now we'll go to the MVP board. Start with season 2. Not gonna go through the whole thing for the interest of time, but the audience can see here. Top 3 characters: Cassian Andor +8, Bix +6, and Clea +4 in top 3, Pete.
Rightfully so. Great character.
Yeah. Bottom of the list, tied, Mimo. We gave out 1 MVP, 3 MVPs in LVP week. Bail Organa's extraction team, the ISB itself, the Gorman Front, and Lieutenant Kroll from the first arc.
What? The Gorman Front are great. They had a whole language that was almost French, but not quite.
Yeah, they made a lot of mistakes.
Well, what are you going to do?
They're
trying their darndest.
They are trying their darndest here. And Nick, you curious about the series MVP board?
In the interest of time, no.
I'll save that one for next week.
Yeah, I'd love to see it, but in the interest of time, no. I am more interested in the episode rankings we did.
All right, so we ranked the episodes as well here. Very interesting spread. We got 2 perfect 10s in episodes 8 and 9. Then we went basically down the board, like 967 on 11 and 12, 933 on 10, 917 for the end of arc 2. Our lowest episode was actually episode 4, Ever Been to Gorman.
Really? I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, they were all very high.
They're all very high, though. I mean, the lowest,
for sure,
8.17 out of 10, which is absurdly high.
And you got to think that we're ranking these at the time of viewing them when we first see them.
Correct.
So, like, we look back at arc 1 right now saying, oh, it was actually didn't really matter much. It's a little slow. If we rewatched it, those would probably end up a little bit lower. But at the time, I was like, these are awesome. You know what I mean?
Yep. And one last piece of trivia here for those who are interested. I'll go over these more when we do the Rogue One watch next week. The arc ratings. You curious about that, Nick?
Well, if I say no, you're not going to show it. I'm curious.
I could say it for next week if you want.
No, I mean you can do it. I just don't know if you have time. But I was wondering if you
You
would.
guys can do this after
Yeah,
I'm
really.
I'm the reason you have to end. So you could guys can go over this after I leave if you need to.
Yeah, I can, Dick, if you want, we can take 5 minutes with the full of the keyboard after Memeobi bounces. So
No, we don't have to do that. I don't think if the viewer, if the listener can't see it, it's very hard for them to understand anyway. And it was already flashed on the screen for those who are watching on the video version, so it's not a big deal. We don't need to go over all the characters.
all right, so arc two season ratings we rated. Actually, the last arc was the best, 956 average combined. Then the Gorman arc was second. 4 BBY we had above 3 BBY, surprisingly.
Pretty close though.
Very close. So every arc above average score of about 8.5 is pretty good.
Yep, that's solid.
All right, so it's a good place to wrap it up here. Memeobi, thanks for all the time for coming on here. Really appreciate it. People want to check out your Star Wars stuff. How can I do that?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram, which is Obi1_Memeobi. I do lots of memes and Star Wars content. And then if you'd like podcasts, which you probably do since you're listening to this, I also have my own podcast, which is called Memeobi's Galaxy, which is all the normal places as well. I do lots of interesting interviews with people. I have someone coming on who is an expert in prosthetics, and we're going to talk about all the prosthetics in Star Wars. I have a friend of mine who that's her full-time job. So lots of interesting things, trying to add some conversation add some insight to the conversation of Star Wars. But thank you guys for having me on. Ton of fun. Would love to again sometime.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks for all the time. Really appreciate it. Pete, one more time. People want to follow us on social media. I can do that.
For me, at Conti29 on Twitter, and I'll throw it over to Nick for us on social media.
Yep.
Yeah, we're at Sky Guys Podcast pretty much everywhere. And you want to end that email drought? Go ahead.
Yep.
That's skyguyspod@gmail.com. I don't know what you're going to say to us, but go ahead.
Yeah, you can follow me on social media, mphillips331. It's MPHILIPS331. This is over the Justin the Suffering podcast. One of the people on this panel is not Memeobi. Stop by and start writing down the NFL schedule. You can find out who it is by listening to the episode. If you watch the YouTube version, you know. Until then, we'll be back next week to talk about Rogue One after viewing Andor. May the Force be with you.